Hello and welcome to our first official podcast for the Backlog Podcast.
Yay!
My name is Zoe. I will be your host for today. You want to introduce yourself real quick, Mike?
Yep. Hey guys, I'm Mike. Morse Draconis. Probably most of the people watching know me as that.
Oh shit!
So,
could you grab my tea?
Go ahead with what's going on.
I will go ahead and do what's going on. So this is the Backlog Cast. We basically have a very large backlog of video games to play, and this is just us kind of going through it. So whether you play on console, whether you play on PC, tablet, whatever, you probably have a backlog. And so here we just, if you want, you can play along and listen, and join us in a discussion. We have our Discord linked in the description. So if you would like, feel free to join the Discord, and you can discuss there. Or if you just want to leave a comment and be like, hey, great job, or you guys suck, or whatever. I think this about the game. You guys are totally wrong. Whatever. Just keep it polite and civil in the both Discord and comments. So basic format of how we're going to be doing this podcast. As you can see, we have different cards here. So we have story, gameplay, info dump, and these will just kind of come up as we go through the different parts of the podcast. But basically, we're going to have two types of games, right? So we're going to have a long game and we're going to have a short game. Long games are going to basically be play up until this point, kind of like a book club, right? So play up to this point, and then we talk about it, and then we give you a new play up to this point. The shorter games are just games that we're going to play in full and then come on here and discuss. And it'll vary from episode to episode. So maybe we just do one long game. Maybe we do a short and a long. Maybe we do two shorts. It'll just depend on really how much time we have and how much we can play. But we do have a kind of format to keep us on task. And you guys will kind of see it as we go through. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, the most important thing is we want you guys to play along with us, or at least,
play along or watch a playthrough, or something like that.
Whatever. Go ahead.
Some of the games we're gonna stream.
Mm-hmm.
So some games will stream, some games I'll stream, some games Mike might stream. Some games we might stream together. It all just depends on the game, really. But
yeah, I mean, the general idea is that, everybody has a backlog of video games, be it, things that you've picked up on Steam for cheap, or things that you've bought on like PSN or Xbox, or if you have Xbox Game Pass and it's like, I have all these games that I want to play and I just never get around to playing
Or
them.
if you're a collector like me and have like 700 plus games, and it's like only played like maybe 100 of them.
Yeah. So the idea is that to give you a reason to go through those games, or for us, these are all games that we've really been meaning to go through and play and just haven't gotten around to. And sooner, the first couple we're picking and choosing what we're playing because we kind of want to keep us motivated and like really want to do this. But after a while, it's going to be chosen randomly. We're going to have
we'll either choose them randomly or maybe do some sort of voting system. If we get like a bunch of people in the Discord,
absolutely,
we might do some sort of like vote on the next game or something like that.
Yeah, or maybe we'll do an idea that I had was just a couple of games from each of us, and then maybe a couple of games from the community, and then we randomly choose from those, and we do like a seasons type of format.
Oh yeah, maybe.
So it's really going to be dependent on you guys just as much as it's going to be dependent on what we felt like playing.
But the first couple, we're gonna kind of pick by hand.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're scratching yourself.
I was. Yeah. Sorry, my back was itchy.
Good. Have you? Back when a little bit of a side note. I should make a side note thing that just goes over me that just says like Zoe's tangent. There's a GIF of Dodger or press heart to continue. Or Dex bonus. And she's like furiously scratching her leg, and she just looks at the camera and she's just like, like it's hilarious. I love that GIF of her.
It's pretty good.
But yeah, so basically we're just going to be playing through various games. Our first game that we've chosen is, as you can see by the card that we have up on the screen, is Chrono Cross. Yay! So this is a game I have been wanting to replay really since I played it the first time. So what about you?
For me, it was a game that I actually played on the PS1 when I was like 16 or 17. I borrowed it from a friend in high school. He had like a bunch of PS1 games and stuff, and for some reason I only played about halfway through it, and I don't remember exactly why. I don't remember if I needed to give it back to him and I just didn't have time, or I got bored of it. I don't remember what happened.
Maybe
exactly.
You were just like, what the hell is going on in this game?
Well, I think at the same time I had borrowed a couple of other games, and I think I like super dove into like Final Fantasy X or maybe Final Fantasy Tactics at the same time, and those just like ended up being the ones that I like super focused on and ended up dropping Chrono Cross during that period.
Before we get started, I wanted to do a little intro section. We've introduced the podcast, and we've said who we are. We have said our names.
We have,
but we haven't really talked about ourselves. So I want to do that a little bit.
Oh, sure.
So one, this tea is delicious. I got the Assam tea, and oh my god, it's so good. Like,
nice.
I should be drinking that more often. But
so,
as stated before, my name is Zoe. I go by Lady Farah, which is actually a Final Fantasy 14 reference. I name all my characters Farah. from Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. The lady character was named Farah, and she spelled it the same way I do.
Mhm.
And in 14, there's a character named Hoshafont, and he calls you sir or lady, and I was like, oh my god, Lady Farah. And so I just started going by that on my online stuff.
On,
I
on your
am what is it?
on your socials.
Yeah. I am an avid video game collector. I try to play as much as I can, but sometimes playing games is hard. But I have been collecting ever since really I started in college.
Oh.
Like I kind of started in high school. Like I decided like in high school I'm going to keep all my games. And really in college is when I started collecting. Like I started to buy games to have them, right, as part of my collection. For a while I had been running a retro game store. And Mike was actually a part of that as well.
Yeah.
So it was called Rare Drops. I don't know if any of its online presence is still around.
It's not. It's all gone.
But it was just this small little hometown game store. And that's really where my collection took off. Also, if you see my eyes or my face darting around, I'm checking various things. So my current catalog is like 720 games, 720-ish games, and that's all physical.
Yeah.
So, I am also a professor. I teach physics. So I might bring up physicsy stuff from time to time. But I think that's about it. Recently, I have been playing Final Fantasy 14, the new expansion, or at least I've been trying to. Between problems with the logins and like just trying to find time. Like this is like the expansion that doesn't want to be played or something for me. I also started playing Death's Door, and good God, is that game hard?
Oh yeah.
Like I did not expect a game that hard.
Yeah, it's a hard game.
But yeah, that's a little bit about me. A little bit about you, Mike.
Yeah, I also worked at the
Game Gob.
Rare Drops there for a little while. Mainly just helping out when I could, when I wasn't working my full-time job at that point.
You were doing our social media mainly.
Yeah, I was doing social media mainly, just trying to get the word out of any cool shit that came into the store at the time, and just just enjoying the atmosphere more than anything. It was just a really cool little shop. I never was a huge game collector. I mean, she'll tell you before we met, I really didn't have much in the way of physical stuff. You
had a desk, a PC, and a couch.
Yeah, I mean, before that, I did have other stuff, but a lot of that stuff was also shared with the other person that I was living with at the time, and I basically just let them take all that stuff when we parted ways. I had the biggest thing was I mean, I've been playing video games literally almost my entire life. I was actually talking to some people about. I remember when I was a little kid, I was like maybe 6 or 7, and where my grandparents lived, there was a little tiny like mom and pop grocery store that had a stand-up Mario arcade machine, and it was like the
original.
Yeah, the original like it. What was
Was it one of the player choice?
I literally don't remember. I remember it was playing. It was like playing through the NES game.
Yeah, that it sounds like it was one of the player choice arcade cabinets.
But it was super, super cool. I was like, this game is fucking awesome. And then it turned out that my cousin that lived down the street from my grandparents actually had an NES. And that's when I first played Mario Brothers. That's when I first played Metroid, Legend of Zelda, like all the old like classic NES games, Contra, all that stuff. And then several years later, I got an NES for Christmas. I've always been a console generation behind, except for recently because of money and having a job and not having anything else to spend money on. So being able to be like, yeah, I want that expensive piece of hardware.
Gaming is a surprisingly expensive hobby.
Yes, it is. But yeah, I've started playing NES. My grandparents actually had my other grandparents on my other side of the family actually had an Atari 2600, so I played a bunch of those games. Funny enough, for the longest time, my dad was like one of the best Wizards and Warriors players in the world. He had like some crazy high score that he had like a plaque and everything for it. It was it was cool. Wild as shit. Like it was super cool. It was back when when game companies were like all about giving you like physical stuff just like randomly for shit. That was certainly a big thing with Atari. But yeah, after that it was like Sega Genesis.
You were always a big Sega fan, weren't you?
Yeah. The
when
Sega
it came
Genesis.
To Nintendo versus Sega, you were like Sega.
I mean, I had both. I had an NES and then I had a Genesis instead of a Super Nintendo. So unfortunately, I missed out on a lot of the like really cool RPGs and stuff until way later when I had a PC and I could just emulate them. And then I went back and played a lot of those RPGs. Actually, funny enough, I mentioned earlier that I played Chrono Trigger when I was like 16 or 17. Chrono Cross, not Chrono Trigger. I had actually not played Chrono Trigger at the time that I played Chrono Cross. Didn't even know what Chrono Trigger was. Didn't know that it was linked together at all.
I can't remember if I played Chrono Trigger before or after I played Chrono Cross.
I definitely played Chrono Cross before I played Chrono Trigger, because Chrono Trigger was one of those games that I went back and emulated on my PC.
Yeah, afterward. I know. The way I played through it though was through ZSNES.
Yeah, good old ZSNES.
My brother had like loaded it up, and it was that. Was that a bunch of Sailor Moon games and Zelda?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he actually had the fighting Sailor Moon game that's like it's like the cockfighting of the fighting game community, where it's like one character can just obliterate you in like 2 hits.
So it's like the Game Grumps where they played that one super stupid robot game where there's the one that's the boss that's as big as the screen. Big Jam.
Yeah. So
what
games have you been playing recently?
Recently, I've fallen back into playing a lot of Apex Legends with some friends just because that's fun. I occasionally dabble back into Path of Exile, which is a Diablo-esque action RPG on the PC. Well, it's actually on everything now, except for Switch, I think. I don't think there's a Switch version, but there's an Xbox and PSN version. And what else have I been playing recently? Recently I played Inscription, which is a PC only. Oh, dude, that game is wild as shit. It is it's actually spelled Encrypt, like crypts screen, and it's like this weird oh god, my cat just spilled my water everywhere. Really? Oh no.
Go grab a towel.
Oh jeez, vamp.
So our first game that we're going to be talking about is Chrono Cross. The point that we have played to is the first save point after Viper Manor. So you go through, somebody in chat just says, "Dang it, cat." Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of that. We have 4 cats here. So we're probably going to have a lot of cat shenanigans. But we played up to Viper Manor. So we played all the way through the level Viper Manor. And then we stopped at the very next save point that you have, which is in a little village called Goldove, I believe. So if you want to stay on track with us, you can always, of course, listen back to this. But play up to that point, listen, comment, whatever.
Okay.
And then at the end of this podcast, we will have the stopping point for the next episode. Okay? But a little bit about Chrono Cross. Chrono Cross was released in 1999. Let's see, what it was released in November 18th, 1999 in Japan, and August 15th in 2000 in North America. I actually didn't realize it came out in 2000.
Yeah, that was back. It was back when the difference in games coming out.
They had to.
Pretty big.
They still had to translate the damn thing.
Oh, yeah.
It is an RPG published at the time known as Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix. Its director, and I'm going to probably throughout the podcast horribly mispronounce names, but Masato Kato was the director. The producer was Hiromichi Tanaka. He was also one of the designers. Artist was Yasuyuki Hanobi and Nobu Teruyuki. Composers, this game was noted, had a very famous soundtrack. Some people call it the best soundtrack of any video game. Yasunori Mitsuda. Yasunori Mitsuda was the game's composer. This is part of the Chrono series of games, which really just involves Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. There were other plans, but they never really got around to it. Let's see. Checking my notes here real quick. The sequel to Chrono Trigger, its reception was actually fairly well received.
Yeah, it received one of the. It got one of the releases where if you're a collector, it's
the greatest hits. It did hit greatest hits level,
which was 1.5 million.
Yeah. But in recent years, it's kind of become a bit of a cult classic. In fact, I was looking up an FAQ, and somebody was like, "So you want to know how to get every character in this obscure little RPG known as Chrono Cross from a company called Squaresoft?" And I'm like, that aged. I can't tell if they're being like kind of a smartass or like if they just really thought that.
Yeah.
Like, but that's a little bit about the game itself. There are a couple different ways to play it. So we always like to talk about how you can play the game if you want to play it yourself. I am actually, hold on, just a sec. I left my tablet.
Oh, okay. She stepped away. Yeah. So one of the cool things that I saw was that it it received a perfect 10 on GameSpot, which back during that period actually meant something. It was actually one of only 16 games out of the 40,000 games listed on GameSpot to get a perfect 10. And they also gave it the Console Game of the Year award in 2000. So it was definitely not a.
It's a very good game.
It's a very good game, and it was a huge success for Square at the time.
But ways to play it. There is obviously the original release on PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a PlayStation 1, you can hook that up, pop the disc in. You can also play it on PlayStation 2 through its backwards compatibility, as well as PlayStation 3. Now note, PlayStation 3 has backwards compatibility with all PlayStation 1 games. All PS3s can play PS1 games, but only the first can play PS2 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that they can actually play PS1 games on their PS3.
Yeah.
It is still available on PSN storefront, the PlayStation Network store, although it is getting a little difficult to buy because Sony has made it to where you cannot add funds through your consoles anymore. If you play on the PS2, you can't complete the game. Fun fact. That cannot be true because I originally played it on the PlayStation 2.
Now, Chrono Cross also did come out in a collection where it was that plus Final Fantasy. I want to say
you're thinking Chrono Trigger.
Oh shit, that was Chrono Trigger, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're thinking. I think it's anthologies, Final Fantasy anthologies.
Okay, never mind. I'm wrong.
I have been playing it on a combination of PS3 and PlayStation Vita. So it is available on Vita and PSP. Obviously, you can emulate them on those as well if you have a hacked one, but the legality of that is not for us to discuss.
Yeah.
There is also, of course, emulation on PC. That's how you have been playing it. At one point, you have to swap the disc, and the PS2 hangs if you open the disc tray. Huh. See, I never ran across that problem. Maybe it's only a thing on certain PS2s. Because I know
maybe it's an issue with only the European release.
Maybe.
Because the person in chat is in the UK, so.
Oh, okay. It might have just been a European thing.
Maybe.
Because I remember not having any problems on the PS2. But what emulation have you been using?
So I use an emulator called I renamed it. What is it called? It's EPSXE. And it's basically it's if anyone's tried to emulate PS1 games, it's like the emulator for it. They have a mobile version of it. It's a pay version, but it's like $3 or something like that.
There is also a mobile version of the game.
Oh, yeah.
I am sorry that I am not super prepared with this info dump.
It's fine.
Somebody sprung it on me last minute. No, there is not. That is Chrono Trigger that is on. the App Store.
See, there you go.
So
I'm not the only one that confuses the two, I guess.
But you can of course emulate it on phones, tablets, computers.
Yeah, the PlayStation 1 emulator on phones is surprisingly good. I tested it out on it was like a Galaxy S8 or I think was what I tried it on, and it worked perfect. Like, it didn't have any issues whatsoever.
You had an S8 before your current phone.
Right, I was trying to remember if I did it on that phone or the one before that. But it obviously I've been playing on my PC, so I get to crank everything up and get to play around with shaders and stuff like that. I had some issues with like the sound popping and thing, which is apparently just an issue with certain PS1 games with the way that they're programmed with some type of like background layer can cause the sound to like mess up. So that's like a specific thing.
Emulation is never perfect. If you want to play the game the way it was originally made, you kind of have to have a PS1, a CRT, the game. Like it's a whole big thing.
Yeah.
It is prohibitively expensive sometimes to play some of these older games. But there's also many playthroughs, of course. If you have a favorite YouTuber,
goodness. Yeah.
They have probably played Chrono Cross at some point.
Plenty of streamers too, I'm sure. It's definitely one of those games that would probably lend more to streaming than putting on YouTube nowadays. So,
as stated before, this is a sequel to Chrono Trigger. It follows the events of Chrono Trigger. Now, we're gonna try to not spoil Chrono Trigger, right?
Yeah. I don't think
so. If you haven't played Chrono Trigger, it's actually not a very long game. For an RPG, it's only like 20 hours. My girlfriend beat it in like 3 days. And she did all the side missions and stuff too. Well, almost all of them. She screwed one of them up. But we're gonna try to keep spoilers for Chrono Trigger to a minimum. But obviously there are going to be parts where we just have to talk about what happened in Chrono Trigger. And during that time, anytime we have spoilers, we will put up a little spoilers. So that way, if you're playing along, and you don't want to get spoiled on anything, you can leave, come back, and then watch the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this later in podcast form, in podcast form, we will,
of course, say spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Like anytime this spoiler thing comes up, I keep gesturing to it with my mouse, and I'm like, nope, people can't see that.
Yeah,
I'm used to teaching from COVID.
Yeah,
where it's like I just plop my screen up on stream and just start. I would actually physically point at stuff and be like, "You guys can't see what I'm pointing at." But anytime we put up this spoiler, we will obviously say spoiler warning as well.
And it'll be notated in the times below in the description as well. So
that's the info dump. Anything to add as far as general information about the game?
I mean, unless you want to say like who the main character is or anything like that. I don't know if you want.
I mean, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it then.
Next, we're gonna be talking about the gameplay of Chrono Cross. So here we're gonna talk about the actual mechanics of the game. What do we think? What do we like? What do we don't like? What we don't like? What do we don't like? What we don't like? what works, what doesn't work, how's the gameplay loop. Probably talk about music. If we feel like the game has any notable music, obviously this game has one of the best gaming soundtracks ever. So we will be discussing the music. And that'll be it for the gameplay section. Okay. So the gameplay in Chrono Cross, it is a turn-based RPG, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have two basic attacks. You have attack and you have element. You also have a stamina gauge that depletes every time you do either one of these actions, right? And so what it is you have an element grid, right? And as you do hits, it fills up that element grid, and you're able to do an element that's been filled in, or a different attack, right? So the interesting thing with the attack is you're not guaranteed, right? So there's 3 levels of attack. There's 1, 2, and 3, and I really wish I had grabbed some clips of this, but whatever. We know for next time.
Yeah.
And each time you do like a level 1, level 2's percentage goes up, and then level 3's goes up, and so forth and so forth. So if you do 1, 2, 3, you have a better chance of hitting. Or you could just be like, screw it, I'm just going to take the chance on the 70% for 3 and just try to hit all 3s. And this is also how much stamina it takes away.
Yeah.
And the level of spell is also determines how much stamina it takes away. So level 2 takes away 2, level 3 takes away 3, so forth and so forth. And this is the basic gameplay loop. So there are various choices you can make in the game, and we will be discussing some of them. Some of them we will not be discussing because as we play through it, we just won't get those.
Right.
So this is a game that there are 44 playable characters. And back then that was actually a big deal. Like that was a lot of characters.
Pretty sure it's on the back of the back of the case that there are 44 playable characters. It's like one of the big points that they make.
And you can get various characters by doing various things. There are a few characters that you have to make a decision on which one you get. For example, the first group that you have to decide from is the Rockstar Nikki, the mysterious magician Guile, and the French swordsman Pierre. I don't actually know anything about Pierre because he kind of sucks and is uninteresting, and for whatever reason, Mike chose him. So we will actually get to hear about Pierre. So anything else you want to add? Graphics. This game looked amazing at the time, and I think it still holds up.
Absolutely,
well.
It does. I will say, using the PS1 emulator, I'm able to like smooth it out some, and like some of the.
Somebody in chat says, "Imagine not choosing David Bowie."
So I mean, it doesn't look as jaggy and jaggedy and things like that, but still, it looks fantastic for what it is. I mean, it's another one of those games that has
this game
static backgrounds.
Yeah, it used what's called pre-rendered backgrounds. So all of the backgrounds are literally just a picture, and they kind of have like here's the areas where you can walk around in, and your character is this size when it gets to this area, and that sort of thing. So it's pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D sprites. So I think it holds up really well. The sprites obviously are kind of not great when you blow them up.
Yeah, I mean it's PS1 graphics in general, so things are a little blocky.
The pre-rendered backgrounds still to this day look amazing.
Yeah, and the cutscenes that they have in the game still look fantastic. I mean, they look great for the time.
I've noticed on my PlayStation 3 when I play it on, because like I said, I've been going back and forth because you can transfer saves from the PS3 to the Vita and back and forth.
Right.
When I play on the Vita, I don't notice any like weirdness with like everything looks really smooth, right?
Okay.
And then when I transfer it over to my 4K screen that my PS3 is hooked up to, everything looks a little bit more smeared and pixely. Especially the pre-rendered cutscenes. There are artifacts in the pre-rendered cutscenes that on my Vita I don't notice it at all. Like specifically in the opening movie.
Interesting.
There are a lot of artifacts, and I don't notice it on the Vita. But when I put it on a larger screen, I totally notice it. Now, keep in mind, I am also playing the PlayStation Store version of the game. So I'm not actually physically putting my game in.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, I bought Chrono Cross. I think I bought it like last year or something.
I mean, it may just be that the game that they have on the PSN store just has like a lower quality FMVs. I mean, they're not really FMVs, but videos that they play for the cutscenes.
It may just be that because you can't really upscale pre-rendered cutscenes.
So it's just having issues upscaling them.
So, like, if there's blurriness in the pre-rendered cutscenes, you're gonna see them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, whereas like AI can go in and like fix things up on like a PC, like you said, you can go in and like smooth things out.
Right. Yeah.
With pre-rendered, it's literally just a movie playing, right? So you would have to have like an AI go in there and interpolate frames and stuff and like clean up images. And as I have been learning, AIs are not good at that.
Yeah, they're not super great at that still.
Like they have a time and a place in animation, and this is not one of them. So I mean, obviously, PlayStation 1 graphics, but yeah, I think the pre-rendered cutscenes still look amazing. Like I still watch the intro sometimes. Like I'll just be like, "This is the greatest intro to a video game ever."
It's a really good intro. So what are your initial thoughts on? I mean, I know that you've played through the game entirely, like before. And you're replaying it again.
So I because the way we're doing this is one of us leads the game, and so here I'm leading the discussion on the games, right? So I'm deciding where we play up to. I'm deciding like, okay, talk about this, blah blah blah. And so I'm playing ahead. Right, so I'm technically one podcast ahead of you. Right. But I am also playing on, this game had what's called New Game Plus and Continue Plus. And the New Game Plus just lets you start a new game from the beginning with your old characters, all of their items, all of their magic, all of their equipment, everything. You keep their levels, because here you don't level up like a traditional RPG, right? You gain star levels. So every time you beat a boss, you gain a star level. And after each star level, you gain so many points in like HP and defense and strength and various things, right?
Yeah, and it also expands the grid, or not really grid, but like I guess grid, basically, that you can
more of your element grid
yeah.
is accessible to you. Like it fills in more. You can use more slots, basically. And one of the interesting things that this does is it makes it to where every single character that you get, because you're not leveling them up individually, they're all playable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to sit there and be like, oh man, I just got this character. Now I gotta like level them up and like do a bunch of grinding. It's like, no, I got this new character. I can instantly start using them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually kind of funny because you'll get a new character and they'll be like, who do you want in your party? And if you don't put them in your party, they're just kind of like, some of them are just kind of like, oh, but I wanted to join.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of funny. But I am playing on a New Game Plus.
Right.
And you were playing just through the standard first playthrough of the game.
Absolutely.
In the New Game Plus, you can also go and actually beat the final boss at various points.
Yeah, you can beat the game pretty early.
Like you can beat the game at the very beginning with just the main character.
Yeah.
And you get special endings depending on when you beat the game. I am not doing any of those. I am just kind of doing a New Game Plus, so I can kind of speed through it. Because also they give you a fast forward button.
Mm-hmm.
So I just fast forward through all the combat and I plow through everything. Because I'm trying to experience the story again. So because you've only played like not even halfway.
Yeah, no, I basically played to...
You played to the point where we're going to play to next time.
Right.
So... and that's actually not that... That's like 10, 15 hours into the game.
Yeah, it's not super far into it. So my question was going to be, what... I mean, if you can remember, or maybe, what has playing through it again... what did you think of the combat system in general?
I have always loved the combat system of Chrono Cross. I remember when it first came out, a lot of people were like, man, it's convoluted for no discernible reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not that complicated once you wrap your head around it. Like you have hits, your hits make it to where your element grid is available to you. You use your element grid and then have to build it back up.
Right.
Like that's the main loop. Like there are some other things, like you have the field effects. So there's a little circle up in the corner of the screen, and as you use spells, it fills in with whatever color the spell was. So in the game, there's 6 elements. They literally just call them red, blue, yellow, green, white, black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they completely got rid of it being like fire, earth, water, or whatever.
Chat says it's not your typical RPG, and it takes a bit of getting used to, but it's not difficult. And
it's not a difficult combat system. I don't know if it started this way with New Game Plus, but if you start completely fresh in the game, it actually starts with the auto select feature, to where you don't actually get to decide, like, if you're going to do the first attack, the second attack, or the third attack. Like it always goes through and does 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it kind of, for an old game, it has a lot of modern sensibilities.
yeah, it has a lot of like tutorial stuff in that kind of sense.
And it's not like the tutorials like press X to do this and blah blah blah. Did you know you can press X to jump? It's like, well,
Yeah.
duh, it's a game where I jump.
Right.
Like I'm playing Mario. Yeah, jump. I figured that out.
No, it does do the thing where in the beginning, the people you talk to, specifically the people in the first town that you start in, they tell you how to play the game. And there's actually like a intro fight on telling you like how to fight and things like that.
It was one of those games where, and take it for what it is. The intro fight can kind of drag.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank God I was able to like power through that, because
I mean, I just skipped it. I didn't even talk to him.
oh yeah, I mean, thankfully it's also optional.
Yeah.
You don't get anything for it. It just teaches you how to play. So, but there's a lot of modern sensibilities, like not having to level up every character separately.
Mm-hmm.
Like that leveling system, I think, is one of the best things about the game, and that you can just when you get a character, you can just play that character. Like you still have advantages, like you get more element grid the more you use a character. You get more stats the more you use the character, right? And so you definitely get advantages for using a certain character. Like my first time through, I always picked Guile as my first like character that you have to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really interesting because his element grid, most of them start out with like you have a lot of them, and then the higher the level, the fewer you get. So it's kind of this like triangle.
Yeah, it's usually a triangle that goes from big to small. His goes from small to big.
Yeah, and so you get like a couple of like level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you get like 5 level 7s. And it's like, oh my god, this
huge.
But you kind of have to play him, so you still have you still get advantages for playing with certain characters. But it's not like oh, I didn't level that character, so I didn't see that story, or I didn't level this character, so I never got to experience, combat it with this character,
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only thing that you could theoretically not experience is one of the side characters you get has the ability to steal things.
Yeah. Well, there's actually a couple of characters that have steal.
Oh, are there? Okay.
Yeah, there's another character that has a steal ability.
So is there any music that's like?
Well, before we get to music,
okay.
One of the things I wanted to bring up is the game uses, those that are familiar with the old Final Fantasy games will remember the active versus wait systems. Active is basically whether you're in a menu selecting an item, an attack, whatever, the game continues on. So like if you sit in a menu for like a minute, the boss is just going to keep hitting you. Right?
Yeah.
So you got to be fast. Wait is when you go into a menu, it basically pauses their progress bar, right?
Right.
And then when you come out of that, it starts back up. This game uses the active system, but does not tell you.
Yeah, no, there's no indication whatsoever.
You will be doing like your basic like 1, 2, 3 attacks, and all of a sudden the enemies will just be like, "Nope, my turn."
Yeah, and what kind of sucks is if they interrupt you in the middle of that combo, it actually screws up the percentages and like basically resets them.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. I think it's it because I always mash the X button when I'm going through my attacks because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build up my thing and then use a spell the next turn,
right?
Or the next time this character can do something.
Yeah.
So I think it's if you are in the middle of your attack and the enemy interrupts you, it just starts right back up. But if you're like 1, okay, that happened, then 2, okay, that one happened, then 3. If you do that, then it'll reset the percentages. So I think there's actually an advantage to kind of mashing the X button as you go through your basic attack combo.
Yeah.
Either that or it's completely random, which is even more infuriating.
Yeah.
So
speaking of like the combo that you would use when you would play for real and not just like completely wipe the floor with everything because you're doing New Game Plus, would you always just like have everybody attack one turn and then use magic the next turn? Or would you do the thing because you can theoretically you
can stop your attack at any point and go straight into your element grid.
Right.
And
so you can theoretically do like
you can go
1, 2, 3 and then cast a level 4 spell.
Right, and that'll actually put you into the negative stamina.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what your people are like, oh, it's so complicated.
Right.
Is the stamina. So as you do stuff, it depletes your stamina. As other people do stuff, you gain stamina. I don't know why you flashed there for a second.
I don't know what happened there. That was weird.
But you can also go into the negative, in which case you still have to wait until you get into the positive before that character can do anything. Right?
Right, yeah.
So it's kind of a high risk, high reward type thing.
So I figured out something with the combat system because I was messing around with it. And I actually figured out that if you wanted to do the like attack 4 times or whatever, and deplete it all down to where you only have 1 stamina left, and then you cast a big spell and it puts you in the negative, right? And you do that with each of the characters, so they're all in the negative. The next turn that comes around, they'll only have like 1 or 2 stamina. But if you have everybody block, they all go back to 7 the next time.
Yeah, if you have everyone block, it kind of resets.
So you can try and like burst down monsters in the fight, to where like it would they'd only get 1 attack instead of maybe 2 or 3 if you did nothing but attacks and then waited and then built your stamina back up. I waited for your stamina to build back up the next round, cast a spell, and then because then they would have an extra round to attack, basically.
Yeah.
In a game that doesn't tell you whether are rounds or anything.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I think that's one of my biggest frustrations with this game is it needed a system like Final Fantasy X where it just told you what order things were going to happen in. Like it was in 10, it was like always different, and it was based off of like the character's speed stat or something like that.
Right.
But the game, it had
like a bar at the top.
Yeah, it had a bar that was like, okay, it's going to be this person's turn, and then this, and then this, and then the enemy takes their turn, and like you could use that to your advantage. Like the game needs some sort of like clear. There's no clear understanding of how the enemies get to attack. Like there's no bar. There's no. Like, if there's a bar, we need to see the bar, like, something,
Yeah, and there's no like indication of like what they're gonna do. Like the only indicator you have whatsoever is when you beat on an enemy, they'll change their stance in some way when they're at like almost dead. And most enemies have like a different ability or something that they'll use when they're almost dead.
Yeah.
And that's usually an indication of, oh shit, I need to kill that dude real fast before he casts fire and hits everything or something.
But
Or explodes.
to answer your question, I would, after a certain point in the game, I would build up the character Kid. I would build up hers, steal as soon as I could, and then kind of build up everyone. And it'll change later on. Like the way you strategize will change when you get summons and whatnot. So the game kind of switches up things a little bit.
Interesting.
But for the most part, it's your basic RPG. You go through, you do the same thing ad nauseum. Like, do it over and over and over. Like,
so we spoke on the like field thing that it has, where there are like different field colors and they affect things.
Yeah.
Were you always like super specific on trying to like maximize those type of things, or it was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna cast that spell because I want to use that spell at this point?
Well, see, in the beginning, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it does. So far, it doesn't really seem to matter.
You want to keep the field from being all of whatever the characters you're fighting are. Like, if you're fighting a character that casts black magic, you want to keep the field from being all black at once.
Right.
There's actually a mechanic, and as we play through, we'll discuss mechanics that kind of change.
Okay.
So, and there's actually a mechanic that requires you to make the field all one color in order to do something.
I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
I actually just got the first one of these things, but that will be talked about in the next video because, again, I'm playing ahead. So I know more than you.
I know what you're talking about, though. I remember that.
So and it actually becomes a very crucial gameplay mechanic at a certain point. But for the most part, no. If I wanted to cast a spell, I just casted it. And if I saw like, oh, the next spell that is gonna be cast can like change make the field all one color, then I would just cast a different color. I would just make sure that I casted whatever the enemy was not.
So when you're setting up the different skills in the skill trees in the not the tree but the like grid,
the element grid,
element grid. There we go. Are you specifically going in and setting those, or are you letting it do it like auto?
I kind of do a combination.
Yeah.
So I remember in my first playthrough, I always set them by hand. Because you start out with such a small grid, right?
Right. It's pretty easy to be like, I want the spell that hits everybody to be the most powerful.
Yeah, like it's pretty easy to be like, oh, okay, I want a healing spell. I want like an attack spell. I want an AoE spell. Because you have like 5 slots to put stuff in.
Right.
When you start getting like your full grids, it's usually a lot easier just to say auto and then just go back and refine it. I found
that's basically, I've already started doing that. I've basically been like, just do auto, and then I'll just be like, no, you don't need 3 ice lances on level 3 guy.
Yeah,
change that up.
Like your main character, typically I just always did that one by hand. Because it was like I always had him in my party. Because your first playthrough, you have to have him in your party. You can't not have the main character.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm avoiding saying his name. His name is Surge. It's
well,
not
that's his default name.
Yeah, you can change the name of all of the characters, which is actually like it's kind of neat. I never do anything with that.
Also, I contend that his name is pronounced Sergey.
No, it's Surge.
But it's spelled like
Surge. You're wrong. I will die on this hill just the same way it's Titus, not Titus.
Titus is wrong.
Whatever.
It's Titus.
It's Titus.
Yeah.
Like I will die on that. It's Zidane, not Zidane.
Really? Wow. I
will die on these hills.
Interesting. I can't remember. I think I would always say Zidane in my head as well. I can't remember.
Nope. It is a game that has very strong French influences, and so his name is Zidane. Because also it's a Japanese name, and that's just how you would say it. Anyway, I'm not getting into that argument until we play that game.
I mean, to be fair, this game also has very strong French influences.
I mean, at parts, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the characters are very French-sounding names.
I mean, yeah, and unfortunately the game does the thing where it spells out their dialects.
Yeah.
And I hate that with a fiery passion. Like, just write it out normally and tell me they have an accent.
Right.
Like, just put it in parentheses by their name or something. I don't care. I spend so much time trying to decipher what that goddamn clown is saying. Like, her accent is so thick.
I love it.
Like, it's really cool, but, like, just type it out normally and tell me she's got a thick accent. Like, I know it's not books. I know, but, like, it's just I hate... Because the spelling of some words is, like, I think it's, like, what? The is Z.
Z, yeah.
And it's like, wait, what is... What is ZHE? What the hell is that?
Yeah.
So it's like I hate it. Some people love it. Some people are like, it's one of the best features of the game. I
mean, it's one of those things that, like, all the RPGs around that era.
I hate books that do it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It was just that was the popular thing to do, like, for people that were translating Japanese to English when they had that type of accent. They would make sure that accent came through in the dialogue in some way.
What was it? Huckleberry Finn?
Oh yeah, very. Yeah.
Oh my god. I hate his writings. Not because like he's a racist. Well, I mean, he wasn't really racist, but...
I mean, yeah.
I mean, he was, but he was like, I'm racist because everyone's racist. Yeah. It's inherent in our society. But, like, I hate his writing because he does phonetic spelling of stuff, and I'm like, no. Just tell me they have an accent. Just tell me they have a Creole accent. Just tell me they have a French accent. Just tell me they talk with a lisp instead of doubling like every. Oh my god, I hate it so much. Like no. If I was making a game and somebody was like, "Hey, let's spell things out phonetically," I'd be like, "You're fired."
Jesus.
Like, no, just be like, "No, you're gone." Sorry.
I mean, you could just be like, no, you're wrong. We're not doing that. But
nope.
Wow.
Anyway, is there any like gameplay that we haven't mentioned that you want to bring up?
No, I think that's pretty much everything.
I find the gameplay pretty enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty enjoyable. I will say, the first time I like turned off the auto thing, I was messing around and I was just like, I wonder if you just do nothing but light attacks, if it's more damage than if you did like a light, medium, and then heavy. No, it is definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
Like there's actually items in the game and spells in the game that will increase your hit percentage. Like one of them is just 99 and it makes every hit 99%. And so you just you cast that and just level 3. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the music real quick.
Sure.
Now, I'm not a music aficionado or anything.
Definitely not either.
Like I can't tell you, oh, listen, you can really tell that this song was influenced by this type of culture or whatnot.
Right.
The basics of my opinion on music is it's good shit. Like, I mean, I can expand on that a little bit, but like the music is very dynamic. Like,
so
it has such a large range of music.
So, looking at the name of the songs in the Chrono Cross OST,
yeah,
I never noticed until just now, actually, that when the first thing that we're going to talk about happens, and the music in the locations change.
Yeah,
I did not notice that.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
Like it's got a bunch of like remixes and like rearrangements of like the final song that plays during the credits. Like it plays throughout the game, but you don't know it until you get to the end of the game, and then like you have a light bulb moment at that point.
Right.
I don't want to say any more because that's getting into like spoiler territories.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, and that song is amazing. Everything is just so well written, and like it captures the feel. Like the whole game takes place in like these little islands. It's almost like an archipelago, like the whole region, and it just gives you this very like the opening village is very tropical feel, and like. The music, it just teleports you right to it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I think the ending song, when we get to it, I can't. That song, it's one of the greatest songs ever. like I've cried to that song.
I don't think I've ever heard it, so that'll be interesting.
But like, I kind of wish they had done, some different combat music.
Yeah, it's all well, yeah. I mean, that's very old school RPG, though.
So the way I always judge a soundtrack is, would I listen to it on its own? And the answer here is yes, absolutely. I do listen to the soundtrack on its own. Like, there's one point in the game where they just have a rock opera. And it's really good. Like, again, I'm not going to say anything other than it's a rock opera. But it's real good. Anything else you want to... What do you think of the music?
I think it's really good. I mean, having only heard maybe a third of it or so, I mean, so far it's good, but it's not anything that's like blown me away or anything. So I'll be interested to hear. I mean, you say that the last, like the song that plays on the credits is really good. So I mean, that'll be interesting to hear. And
I think the best thing you can say about a gaming soundtrack is it fits.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like,
Yeah, it's definitely not one of those things where it's like you go into an area and you're like, what the fuck am I listening
yeah,
to? What is this?
like if you play the original Resident Evil and it's just in the
Yeah.
basement, and it's like, wait, did a deaf guy make this? And in fact, yes.
Oh really?
Yeah, but it turned out he wasn't actually deaf.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Anyway,
But yeah, that's what we have to say about the music. It's really good. It's totally worth a listen. So, on to the next segment. So we're all done talking about gameplay. Basic gameplay. It's your standard JRPG. Obviously, it's a little repetitive.
I mean the combat
like any
system itself.
old game, it's repetitive. Like you're gonna be doing the same thing a lot.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do want to point out before we end this segment is this was one of the first games that you could see the enemies on screen. There was no randomness to the battles. If you wanted to avoid an enemy, you just walk around them.
Right.
And so like there's a certain point in the game where you're just like, oh, I just don't want to do the battles anymore. And you're just like, I'm just gonna walk past all these guys, or I've fought these guys a million times. I'm just gonna walk past them. So,
but it also, funny enough, is because it's an old school RPG where you sometimes have to grind for things. It makes grinding easier.
Yeah. All right, on to the next segment, stories. And this is where we're going to get into spoilers. So we're going to put up the little spoilers. Spoiler warning for those listening in audio form. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go through kind of story beats, right? So we're going to kind of recap what's happened so far, up to the point that we've played. Let me grab my notes here. And we're just going to kind of go by beats. And then we're going to go back and we're going to talk about specific things. Okay? So if you're listening and you're like, oh my God, they skipped over this, we'll get to it. Hopefully we'll get to it. Because, again, some of this stuff is optional content. And okay. So we start the game with an opening cinematic, the pre-rendered cutscene. We start out in this big fortress, right? It's kind of this, we see an overview of this fortress. And it's got all these dragons and stuff on it, and it's like out in the middle of nowhere, it seems. And we actually start the game with 3 characters. Like, we start the game in media res, which for those that don't know, that just means in the middle. Right? So we start in media res at this tower, which we will learn very shortly is called Fort Dragonia. And we go through a little bit of you're super powerful, mess around with the combat, have fun. Like there's no secret paths, there's no alternative paths, anything like that. It's just a linear, like you go through it. And one of the interesting things here is actually you always start with Surge, the main character, Kid, and the third character you get is always randomized. I got the best character, Miki. Who did you get? Do you remember?
I don't remember offhand. I know it was a female character, and I want to say it might have been a character that you meet very shortly in Lena, but it also could have been one of the dark-haired characters. There was definitely a female character. I cannot remember who it was.
But yeah,
because I will say that the funny thing about this particular area as well is if you've played the game, and you've played through that area before, you can literally avoid every fight, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah, you don't actually have to fight anything.
Yeah. It gives you the ability to fight things if you want, especially to test out. I mean,
So we go through the level. We get to the end of it. We get to the top of Fort Dragonia, and we get another pre-rendered cutscene where Surge, our main character, stabs Kid, or it seems like he stabs Kid.
Well, there's the thing with the door first.
I mean, yeah, but that's not really.
I mean,
that's just a reoccurring theme. The door does this like fish-eyed thing.
It's real weird.
It's real weird, but it's just I feel like that is just an analogy of the wave coming at, because like everything's based off the ocean. Like a wave coming towards you, and you get that kind of vertigo. I think that's probably just a reoccurring theme. But we get a scene, and it looks like Surge stabs Kid, and we see drops of blood, and then we wake up in our starting area. As so many RPGs start, we wake up with our main character in bed, having overslept. We wake up.
Gotta love that trope.
Yes. We wake up and I think I'm pronouncing it right. Arnie Village.
Yeah.
Which is the stupidest name I've ever.
Arnie, sure.
So we basically wake up, we go outside, we talk to a bunch of people, we kind of piece together where we are. And then we talk to our childhood friend Lena, or Lena, however.
It also seems like either our girlfriend or like betrothed in some kind of way.
She is the stereotype of childhood friend.
Yeah.
So if you are familiar with the childhood friend trope, and if not, I suggest you look up Overly Sarcastic Production. They talk about a lot of tropes, and they're a really fun YouTube channel. But you talk to your friend Lena, or Lena, and she yells at you for oversleeping, and apparently you have promised to go get her Komodo dragon scales so that she can make a necklace, and this necklace is given to like people that you like and whatnot. So the whole like Surge and Lena or Lena are a thing. It's kind of an ongoing thing in the very beginning of the game, right? So you go to the beach. I mean, you talk to various people in the village, and this is where you do like the tutorial and whatnot. And there's a couple of different like little side missions you can start.
This is where you can first pick up one of the 44 characters.
Yeah, there's a character you can actually pick up. But again, we'll talk about that after the synopsis. So you go through another level, and you hunt down a bunch of Komodo dragons, which are not the Komodo dragons from this world. It's a very different type of Komodo dragon. They like stand on their feet. But you do various things. You eventually get 3 of them, which is how many you need, and then you go to Opasa Beach. And you have
you also have your first boss fight in the game.
Well, yeah, you have a first. Most of these end in some sort of boss fight, but not all of them are notable.
Yeah.
So like fighting the Mama Komodo dragon is not really like a huge like, oh my god. You're gonna need to know that later.
I mean, you beat up her cubs.
You fight a boss at the end. So you get to the area right past that, which is called Opasa Beach. And you share a little moment with Lena, and she talks about like, oh, do you remember that day? And you can either be like, what? Or you can be like, yeah, no, I totally remember. you can lie to her like a piece of shit. And then as Serge is staring out into the ocean, he has a vision. The ocean kind of retracts out, and then a huge wave washes over him. And something happens. He seems to be teleported somewhere of some kind. And you go back out onto the world map, and just up in the corner it says another world. And you go back to the village, and you start talking to people, and you realize, I'm dead. Serge realizes, like, everyone's like, Serge? No, you can't be Serge. He's dead. He died 10 years ago. And you're just like, what? And you talk to Lena, and she's like, no, you can't be Serge. Don't even joke about that. That was my friend. He died like 10 years ago. His grave is up at Cape Hal. And so she suggests that you go visit the grave, because nobody's done that in a while. So you go, short little hop, skip, and a jump away from the village. You go to Cape Hal to visit your own grave. Very weird. And in Cape Hal, you run across a little group. You run across Karsh, Salt, and Peppa. And you have another tutorial in this area.
They teach you how to use elements.
Anytime Salt and Pepper show up, it's basically tutorial time. I think you had the actual boss fight with them.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So you can talk a little bit about that, how that was. But you learn that they are looking for the ghost of the boy who died 10 years ago, which that kind of sounds like you. And so they kind of corner you when you're looking at the gravestone, and all of a sudden this kid shows up, named Kid. She's just like, hey, just call me Kid. Who has a very thick Australian accent, and me and my girlfriend have just been like, yeah, it's Kid. It's just, oi! She's like, oi! What are you doing, mate? But she helps you out. She helps you defeat Karsh and Salt and Pepper. And she just decides she wants to team up with you. And there's a little decision you can make. But for the most part, Kid joins up with you. And you guys decide to investigate this whole, like, Nate's looking for this ghost of the boy that died. And so you head out to the city of Termina. To get there, you need to go through a little area called Fossil Valley. Not a whole lot happens there. There's some characters you can pick up, some side quests you can start. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward run through the dungeon, fight enemies, fight a boss. I think it's a boss tutorial. I think it's Salt and Pepper at the end.
Yes, that's when you
and
fight them
they
again.
teach you a little bit more about the magic system. But you get to Termina, and this is where the game kind of opens up a little bit. You go through, you explore the town, you meet various characters. One character you meet is named Glenn. You can meet Riddle. You can meet Korcha. You can meet the shop lady. I don't remember her name off the top of my head. But the item shop lady. And so, various little side missions kind of open up to you. But nothing you can, like, complete.
Right.
But you overhear someone talking about Viper Manor, and that's where all the knights hang out. And you decide, oh, okay, well, we need to break into Viper Manor. And so this is where you get your first big decision. You can make 3 characters when you're in Termina Village: Nikki, Guile, and Pierre. Each one offers a different way to get into Viper Manor. And so if you choose Nikki, Guile and Pierre disappear. Like, you cannot get them in your party. You can't do those levels anymore. You are stuck with Nikki. Or as somebody in the chat put it, David Bowie. Because it looks like Ziggy Stardust from...
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll talk about the specifics of that. You go to Viper Manor, and it's kind of an open-ended dungeon. You explore the area. You meet various people. You can meet Jusia, who is a Russian scientist who speaks with a very heavy Russian accent. They all speak with a heavy accent. Orcha, a chef, different from Korcha. You meet the 3 Dragoon Knights. So you learn, like, the Dragoons have, like, their 4 heads, or they have the 4 people in charge, and there's only 3 of them right now because one of them just died. And you meet Pip, who is a little science experiment of Jusia's, a guy named the Prophet, potentially, and a girl named Marl. I believe that was her name. In this, you can talk to the Prophet and get some story, but we'll actually talk about that afterwards, because it is not required of you to do that. Okay? If you know what you're doing, you can just skip it.
True.
So we're going to talk about that later because it's actually a pretty in-depth conversation. So you get to the end of Viper Manor, and you confront the head of the knights, the dragoons, General Viper, and apparently he has teamed up with someone named Lynx, and Kid knows this Lynx in some way. We don't know how yet, but there is this artifact there, and they call it the Frozen Flame. And Surge seems to have a reaction. He sees this island. He has a vision of this island exploding. And then Lynx comes out and does a bunch of exposition, and he calls you the Chrono Trigger. And you're basically cornered at this point. Like, they've got you outnumbered. And so Kid grabs this random chick, Riddle, who you may or may not have met in Termina Village earlier, and kind of like makes their way out to the balcony, where Lynx expositions some more, and ends up throwing a poison dagger at Kid. And Kid falls off. Well, Kid pushes Riddle out of the way to make sure she doesn't get hit, and she gets hit with the poison dagger, which is actually kind of an important little tidbit. But Kid falls over, you jump over after her. This guy named Korcha, who runs like a little ferry service, rescues you and takes you to Goldov village, which is off the main island. And there you learn that Kid has been poisoned, and that the only way to cure her is by finding the Hydra, finding an antidote from the Hydra, but Hydras do not exist anymore. They are extinct. And that is where we leave off. Okay? So now let's go back and kind of do this in order. So when you got to Arnie Village, you picked up the first character. right?
Yes, it is a dog that talks with a lisp named Pushel.
And actually, while you talk about that real quick, I have got to use the bathroom real quick.
Oh, well, why don't we take a break and then we'll talk about that?
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
We can
I'd like to
show
get some
our
water.
little break thing and do that. Right. We will be right back in probably 2 to 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oops.
Oops, what?
I played the intro song there. We
Oh.
are back.
Welcome back.
So we just did our story recap. And
Yeah.
we are starting from the beginning and kind of talking about the various points of the story that we want to talk about, right? And you were talking about the first character that you picked up, first optional character that you picked up.
Right. So the first character you can pick up is Pushel. It's a dog that can talk. He talks with a lisp. He's super cute and
Completely useless.
He's not useless. He's very tanky.
Yeah, he has like no magic.
Yeah, he's not very good at magic, and he's very tanky. And if you like equip him with decent stuff, he will start to hurt.
I mean, yeah, but
you can get him super early. You can get him before you even go to
Yeah, you can get him before you go to Cape Hal, and
Mhm.
the game kind of breaks because it assumes that Surge is by himself when he gets to Cape Hal, and so like
it's pretty funny. You walk up to the the tombstone that's there, and as you're walking up, Pushel, you kind of just look at him, and it's basically like Surge just tells him kind of fuck off a little bit and like scoot back some. And as he like scoots back, and you're attacked by the three people that come up to attack you, um, they kick him. They kick poor Pushel and like knock him off the thing into the weeds to the side.
He's a bit of a joke character.
He is a bit of a joke character. But what's funny is later, when you collect up the scales and you go to meet Lena at the beach after that, you obviously if you have him there as well, she actually mentions him and like speaks to him first before she starts talking to Surge. And during that point, you mentioned the thing about her asking if you remember and being an asshole and lying to her, saying that you remember.
Yeah.
It's actually a really big decision that changes a very huge thing if you say that you remember.
Well, yeah, but we're not going to know about that until like
right, but it is a thing. It seems like an innocent question.
Yeah,
well, it's two innocent questions actually. But if you answer them,
a lot of the choices in this game are, some of them are like don't matter,
right?
And then some of them are like, no, it's going to change how things play out dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically the next choice we have to make is whether or not to save Kid because she's been poisoned. And I keep telling you, like, you're like, oh, but you get these characters if you don't save her. And like when you get to Cape Hal and Kid has to join, you can reject her and you can get Lena in your party.
And you can actually, if you don't pick up Pushel at the very beginning of the game, you actually get Lena and Pushel at that point.
Yeah.
If you deny her.
And Lena's actually like a pretty decent character.
She is really good at magic.
But it also, like, I think you have cut yourself off from getting Kid's full story.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
So I keep being like, no, you need to like go with the choices that you're like, no, of course, yeah. Like, of course I'll let you join my party. Of course I'll save you. Like, all that, because like.
So I mean, the one thing that I did for this playthrough so far that I'm probably going to stop doing is I found a guide that basically was like, this is what you need to do to get as many of the characters in one playthrough as possible. Because I figured, playing through it for the first time, I should try and like experience as much stuff as possible.
You stopped using it, and I started using it.
Yeah. I'm going to stop using it. I'm going to stop using it at the point that we stopped for this podcast. I haven't played any further than what happens at the Viper Manor and everything, and Kid getting stabbed.
But there's also a scene that seems fairly inconsequential. You talk with a fisherman dude in a basement of his house, and he gives you a shark tooth.
Mm-hmm. At the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, at the very beginning, like in that first village when you're kind of walking around, exploring, talking to everyone. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to another world, which we'll talk about what's going on with that here in a little bit. You meet that guy again, but he never became a fisherman, and if you talk to him before, you actually get a secret character.
Well, what's funny, if you talk to his old father and the wife and kids in the house, you actually come to find out that something happened to him when he was a fisherman before.
Yeah.
And there's like a point where he has to basically decide
if he's going to be a fisherman or if he's going to do something else. And obviously in this version of the world, he chose to do something else.
He becomes like super devout, like crazy.
He worships a
religious.
scarecrow.
Yeah.
He worships this like idol.
And he stops working. He stops he's just all down there at the scarecrow like all the time. He's basically completely ruined his life.
Yeah, but you do get a little secret character. You get the little scarecrow that he's worshiping.
Yeah, his name is Mojo. It turns out that he is a sentient scarecrow.
So that's. A lot of the secret characters you kind of have to like there's an egg in Fossil Valley that you have to get in order to get a specific character, which I'm trying to get as many characters as I can so we can talk about all of them. And I'm going to do my best. But obviously like I might miss a few. Well, so, and like the choice between Nikki, Guile, and Pierre, like I had to choose one of them. He had to choose one of them. So we're gonna lose out on one of the characters. But thankfully, I actually know his story pretty well.
Yeah. And you said earlier that I picked Pierre. I picked Pierre because I knew you weren't going to.
I basically thought you were gonna pick Guile though.
No.
Because I was like, yeah, you should pick Guile. He makes the game a little easier. He's a bit of an OP character, and he ties stuff in with Chrono Trigger.
Well, what's funny is apparently Pierre becomes incredibly OP about halfway through the game when you find all of his items.
They all become OP. All three of these characters basically become OP, but in different ways.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
right now Pierre is completely useless.
So that actually brings us to that decision.
Well, before we get to that, I have another thing that happens with Pushel. So when you go to talk to Lena at the beach, and the whole thing happens where you go where the tidal wave happens and that cutscene and everything. One of the funny things that Pushel says after you wake up from that happening, and you get like woken up by the dude with the little Komodo pup and everything, and Pushel comes like out of screen to you, because of course again it has a cutscene, like a in-game cutscene that only has you.
Because again the game assumed that you weren't gonna figure out how to get that character.
Yeah, so Pushel like comes by after that, and the funny thing that he said that I assume I'm not sure if it's a male or female anthropomorphic animal.
I don't know. But, it's a giant nightmare creature is what it is.
But he makes a funny comment about Lena spontaneously combusting.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just like, did Lena spontaneously combust? Where did she go?
Oh, because she okay.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on at that point.
Right,
okay.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. So it's just like, did she spontaneously combust? I was like, that's amazing.
So the big thing I want to talk about is when we get to Termina.
Okay.
There's a
couple little things in Termina that I want to talk about, but go ahead.
There's a bunch of different things that happen. You can meet an artist name. I think his name is Vaughn.
This is actually one of the things I wanted to talk about.
His father's name is Go, so together it's Von Go. Or Von Go, Van Go, whatever.
Van Go, yeah.
So you can meet them, and basically anytime you meet a character that has a character portrait, they are recruitable, basically. I think there's a few exceptions. But for the most part, if they have a character portrait, they can be playable.
So that's interesting. So do you think that means that Van and Go are recruitable?
Yes, they are.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, 100%.
That's interesting. Those characters are that whole dynamic, that little story that they wrote for them is super interesting, and it's very like of this alternate timeline where people make mistakes or terrible things happen to them and they start to just ruin their lives. And it very much seems like that's what this
and keep in mind that we haven't met anyone outside of the starting village.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't met duplicates of anyone else other than people from the starting village.
Right.
So we've met Lena twice. That's really kinda it.
Yeah, of the characters
the
that
first
you
time
can,
you
like,
get to
recruit.
Termina, you're in this other world.
Right. But it's just super interesting because, like, if you sit down and really talk to both of them, you basically get the story that, so Van's father Go used to be a famous painter when he was younger. He was super good at it, and he gave up on it because he had a family.
Career versus passion.
Right.
Basic.
Basically what happened was his wife got sick and died. And so after that happened, it went from, Van and his father were close, but they weren't like super close, to basically Go never even having anything to do with Van whatsoever. And Go becomes completely just what's the word I'm looking for? He's like completely focused on work and worrying about these like other paintings that he's bought from other people that were like trying to basically fill this void inside of his wife being dead and him no longer like doing anything that he loves.
Yeah, one of the things I love about this game is like You've always had this issue with open world games where you're like, oh, the main story's not interesting enough. I don't want to go through it. I'd rather just play the smaller stories. And I keep telling you, like, okay, you gotta play like The Witchers. And what was the other one I was telling you about? There was some other open world game that I was like, you gotta play this because it's vastly different. Like the stories and the world go together. And here it's very much the same thing where it's like all of these stories are happening and like you can either experience them or not. It doesn't take away from the main story. But the main story is just as interesting as all of these little side stories.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, just as much care as the main story got, all of these little side stories were really beautifully crafted. And it's really a shame that your first time through, you don't get to experience that many of them. Like my first time through, I never experienced, other than that like opening dialogue where you learn like Vaughn is painting and wishes his dad still painted and they used to bond over it and all that. Other than that interaction, I never got anything else from them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't do the things that I had to do to unlock those characters. Because some of the things that you have to do, like, why would... It's and I'll talk more about this in the next episode for the next segment, because that's the choice that like really baffles me, and it's like, what? This makes no sense.
Right. So one other little funny thing, in that same area. So the Van Goghs are. Vaughn and Go are in the giant house at the end of the street there, and there's that blacksmith that you also pick up Pierre from, right?
Yeah.
So in that blacksmith, or outside of that blacksmith where you go to talk to the kid, I don't know if you've ever did the thing you have to do to get Pierre. You get the little medallion from him, right?
Yeah.
There's a scarecrow there, right?
Yeah.
So if you walk up to that scarecrow and talk to it with Mojo in the party, Mojo goes, "Brother? No, you don't look like brother. Never mind." Yeah, so apparently his brother is somewhere in the world, which is interesting.
That's cute. I never knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the main themes that seems to be going on in this game, and again, I know a little bit more than I'm letting on, because I've played through it. This is actually like my third or fourth playthrough of the game. And I've watched countless videos, and read countless threads online about this game. But one of the main themes is you make this tiny decision, and whether or not it's important, whether or not it has lasting consequences, there are always lasting consequences. So it's very much like the butterfly effect.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. You do this seemingly random thing, and because of that, all of this other stuff happens. And you actually learn later on, because of this one incident in the game, all of the rest of the game happens. Right?
Interesting.
And I'm not gonna say what that thing was or what the rest of it is,
right?
Because we haven't gotten to that point. But sometimes they use that, and they do it really well. Sometimes they do it, and you're just like, how was I supposed to know if I did? How was I supposed to know if I refuse to get Kid at Cape Hal that I get Lena in my party?
Right.
How the
that entire thing.
The Lena that you're talking to is like, I don't even know you. Why would she join your party? I would assume it would randomly be the one that you know that joins your party. What? That doesn't make any. But I hate it from a gameplay standpoint, but I kind of love it from this narrative idea that you do this small thing and it has big consequences. And that'll be kind of a reoccurring theme as we go through.
So another thing, one other thing that happens in Termina that I'm sure you got as well, because it has to do with when you first meet Korcha, the kid that does the raft stuff, the fairy stuff, and there's those kids that are around that mom or something, or no, I'm sorry, it's not a mom. It's like
a merchant.
It's a merchant, yeah. I wrote mom in my notes before I realized that she was a merchant. But they're talking about some story about dragons, and I guess supposedly Korcha has seen them and it's yeah, they're real, and everybody doesn't believe him. And the mom, she just completely. Oh no, that's. Yeah, that isn't a merchant. It is a mom. I remember.
Yeah, it is a mom. You're talking about the sick child.
Yeah, that's what it was.
There's an ill child, and her mother is telling her stories to kind of soothe her. And she mentions that I really liked the story that Korcha told me about the dragons. That was a really fun story. And the mom loses it and don't ever talk to them. Don't believe anything. They're just feeding you lies and all this stuff.
It's real subtle hints of racism and shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, most definitely. They have hinted at this. Well, no, they haven't really, because that really starts in Goldov when you start talking to demi-humans.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's basically two types of people. There's people, and then there's demi-humans.
Right,
Like,
right.
part human, part animal type dealio.
Yeah.
And Lynx definitely seems to be one of these demi-humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so there definitely seems to be like a dynamic there between humans and
But yeah, I was just like, wow, that mom is just a straight bitch. Just like a straight up bitch.
Well, but it's also like you can kind of see like she's just being overly protective of her child.
I mean, right? Yeah, but it just totally reminded me of like actual racism, you know?
Yeah.
So I was just like, wow, holy shit.
Let's talk about the big choice. The choice between Nikki, Guile, and Pierre.
Okay. Yeah, because I chose Nikki, which takes you in an entirely different direction than what I went.
Right. I chose Nikki, in which case you don't actually meet Nikki in Termina.
Right.
Right? So you meet his dancer, Miki. Mm-hmm. And Miki is like, oh, he ran off to the forest again. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's doing something. And so you run out to the forest to try to rescue Nikki. And it turns out he doesn't really need your rescuing. He's pretty capable on his own. But you go through the forest and you find a back entrance into Viper Manor. And so you kind of go through, you come up through the well. There's a well in the courtyard of Viper Manor, and you come up through that.
Okay.
And in there, you've learned that Nikki is actually looking for his younger sister.
Oh.
Which will actually, I'll talk more about that later on.
Okay.
But you learn that Nikki is looking for his younger sister, and he's heard a rumor that she is in Viper Manor. And so he's trying to break into Viper Manor. He learned of this back way in, and this is what he's doing in the forest. He's looking for this back way in.
Okay.
And so you go through the level, you go through the forest, and you find the back way in, and then you end up going up a well and coming out inside the courtyard in Viper Manor. Now you chose Pierre. And you said that was you just walk up.
Yeah, so with Pierre, he literally is just trying to be a hero. And he has heard about the vacancy where one of the dragoons died. And he's wanting to get into Viper Manor to basically apply to be one of the dragoons. So you basically go to the front door, the front gate, and there are some dudes there, and Pierre is just like, "Are you ready? Let's go!" And you just kick their ass.
And this is where you get to actually fight Salt and Pepper, like
right. You fight them for real.
For realsies, and not like, oh, it's a tutorial battle.
They still run away afterwards.
Well, I think you actually fight them again later in the game. Like
you do. But yeah, it's really so. You basically you wait till nighttime, and then you go up to the first guys. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. You go to break in. You like basically go and beat up the dudes in the front. And then there's like one guy left that like yells back at the guards, and the guards open the gate, and then you have to beat those guards up. And then after the gate is open, you're like, we should probably wait till nighttime to try and get in the rest of the way.
Right, because
it's what happens when
Viper
you go
Manor takes place at night.
Right.
The level Viper Manor takes place at night, so it all has to happen at night. Now I've played through with Guile several times because Guile is Guile is a character that we never really get to learn a lot about.
Oh.
we never get to learn like what he's actually doing. Now there's a lot of subtext. My girlfriend has actually just recently played through, and she picked Guile. And there's a lot of like little subtext and little tiny hints about who he's looking, because you talk to him and he doesn't know what he's looking for. He just knows he's looking for something.
And he seems like he's lost his memory or something.
Yeah, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's looking for. He just knows that he has this urge to find someone or something. And he believes that Viper Manor is going to lead him in the direction he needs to go. Right? Mm-hmm. And you actually learn that there's like this kind of sewer system that leads out from Viper Manor. And a bunch of mushrooms go there, and you talk to a guy in the back of the merchant shop, and he says, "Oh, General Viper must like picking mushrooms because there's such great mushrooms back there." And so you learn of this back way, and so when you team up with Guile's like, "Oh, there's a back way into Viper Manor. We can go in basically through the sewer system." They don't call it that. It's like a waterway underpass or something like that.
So that's the locked door. Okay.
Yeah. And you go through. You kind of recruit Korcha.
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't like become part of your party. He just ferries you to the outlet of this waterway. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of work your way up this hill and through the waterway, and you fight guys and creatures and whatnot. But eventually you make your way into Viper Manor. But again, we don't ever learn, and this is a little bit of a spoiler for later on. Mm-hmm. We, unlike Nikki and maybe Pierre, I don't know. I've never experienced Pierre's because he's kind of a uninteresting character. In the with all the characters that Chrono Cross has, Pierre's kind of like meh. Guile is a remnant of what they wanted to do. So there was a sequel to Chrono Trigger. Direct sequel, and it was on the NES or SNES, and it was a visual novel. It was a text-based adventure.
It's where the name of the group that kids are part of is
Radical Dreamers, and this is where the nod to it is Kid is part. The Radical Dreamers in the game are a band of thieves, and Kid is a member of them. Right. But in Radical Dreamers, you basically are breaking into Viper Manor. Oh. Like, that's the beginning of it, and that's actually the extent of where the game goes. You break into Viper Manor, you go through all of the area, you meet Lynx, he throws the dagger at Kid, and then that's it. The game's over. Because it was unfinished. Oh. Like, it was never officially released.
Oh, okay.
And this game eventually turned into Chrono Cross, which is why, like, the Viper Manor section is in there. But in Radical Dreamers, you play as Surge, you play as Kid, and you play as Magus. Magus from Chrono Trigger, who has lost his memory.
So that's why people think that it's...
This is why people think that Guile is Magus. There is nothing in the game that comes right out and says, yep, that's who that is. It is kind of a remnant left over from the days when this game was a visual text-based adventure game, right? And so But if you pay attention throughout the story, there are little tiny things, and I'm gonna try my best to like bring them up when they happen. Because again, there's no like, this is Guile's story. They just kind of started and then never really do anything with it. And they just assume that you've pieced it together between the fact that he's got purple hair, between the fact that he floats instead of walks, like all of these little hints that he's Magus from the previous game.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if people keep hearing me clicking the pen. It's a bit of a not nervous habit, just a habit I have. I click pens. I try to not do it when I'm on camera. But yeah, that's Guile, and Guile is really interesting because one, he has this direct, or he had this direct tie to Chrono Trigger. Two, he's just OP as shit. Like he is legit just broken.
Wow.
Like if you actually take the time to like level up his element grid and stuff, like it's just broken.
Wow.
Like it's
interesting.
Completely breaks the game. Like his magic is so like, oh my god. But no matter who you choose, you always end up going through Viper Manor in the same fashion. How you get into it is the only thing that changes. Right. So you always do like this little mini game afterward, or like when you're first get into Viper Manor to get the Manor key. And from there you fall into a trap, and you escape.
That's where you meet Scientist Lady and the experiment.
Well, that's a secret trap.
Oh.
I'm talking about the you go into like the little circle in the starting area, and it like,
I got you.
The floor gives way below you, and you fall down, and the guards are like, "We trapped you. I'm not gonna open this gate. We really shouldn't open this gate." And then Kid antagonizes them and is like, "Oi, you ain't shit."
Oh, see, that's different. If you don't have Kid in your party, she actually comes from the downstairs part, and
because she's been captured. Yeah.
So
that's
she
where
comes
she
that way.
joins, I bet.
Actually, no. She fucks off after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she comes up. She unlocks. She like knocks the dude in the back of the head. Unlocks the gate for you, and is like, "Well, I guess you still don't want to like." She like makes like a snide comment about you not wanting her in your party still.
Yeah, because you
and then
pissed
she
her
just
off.
And then she leaves again.
But no, she antagonizes the guard, and the guard's like, "I'm gonna open the gate and show him," and then you utterly destroy them. And then the giant dick in the sky violently destroyed him. I'm gonna have to show you that clip.
Oh.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. So we go through Viper Manor. We meet all the dragoons.
Yeah,
There's nothing like super.
You can find some little hidden secret areas. You find one secret area that only General Viper, and you're like, oh, I must be able to get him into my party. At one point, because the game's like, oh, only General Viper can get past there, and it's like, yeah, but I want that treasure. But you go through, and this is the part that we left out, where we go and talk to the prophet. So you go up to the second level, and you can either go straight and kind of fuck around and figure out like how to get to the next part, or you can take a direct left and you go and talk to. He's just known as Prophet. That's all it says in his name. And here it's actually a very large exposition dump of how the world operates. right? So this whole world is basically there's two parallel worlds. There's what the game calls Homeworld, which is where Surge is from, and there is another world. And the prophet explains that the only thing that's different between it is that something happened to Surge 10 years ago. And in Homeworld, he survived. And in another world, he died.
Right.
And because of that, that's why things are different. Right? And so basically, you kind of, if you're kind of charting out the timeline or dimensional timelines of Chrono Cross, you have the timeline, thing happens to Surge, and then it branches off into two different worlds. Right? You have the home world, and then you have another world. And this is why Lena doesn't recognize you. She's like, no, Surge died 10 years ago. But this is actually all missable, right? And when you talk to the prophet, there's this girl named Marl, which is
her name is Marcy.
Marcy.
I looked it up.
Okay.
She is the Dragoon Diva.
Yeah, she is one of the 3 dragoons. And the whole time she's just like, "Can I do it now? Can I do it?" And you're just like, "What you want to do?" Like, she's a little girl, and it turns out she wants to kill you.
Yep, she wants to kick your ass.
And so you fight her. But if you have Nikki in your party, Marl is his sister.
I mean, Mare.
Yeah, Marcy.
Marcy.
Yeah, Marcy is Nikki's sister.
Oh, interesting.
Like, the game doesn't come out and say like, "Oh, that's his sister," but he's like, "Wait, aren't you? Did you ever have a brother? Do you remember what happened?" And she's like, "No."
Wow.
And like Nikki starts being like, "Oh, you should remember." Like there's some dialogue stuff, but like Nikki and Mercy's storyline are intertwined. She's the sister that Nikki is looking for, which is why he heard. "Oh, I hear my sister is in Viper Manor," because she's one of the 3 dragoons that are left.
Yeah. That's really cool.
But yeah, this whole prophet thing, I will say this guy, it turns out to be uber important.
Yeah, what's kind of messed up is if you don't know, like, especially if you don't know anything from Chrono Trigger, you won't really know what. Like, I literally looked up a thing to try and figure out who the Dragoon was in that section, and in that particular thing that I looked up, it says who the prophet actually is, and I was like, that's pretty shitty.
Yeah, you kind of have to be careful when looking up stuff about Chrono Cross.
I mean, we had talked about that, and I had already gathered that that's who he was, but I mean, that kind of sucks. One of the things that he says during that whole big exposition that I thought was interesting, he says something about Angelus Arare, which is like where angels lose their way. And
yeah, that's what he calls Opasa Beach.
Yeah, and I was like, that's very, very interesting.
Like, it's very clear that he's talking about the teleport thing. That
and it's kind of like a warning that, oh, you could fuck some shit up if you aren't careful.
Yeah. But he will return.
I'm sure.
In another very large exposition dump. So
let's get to the big Black Panther in the room.
So
obviously, you know more about who
And-
Lynx is.
So you're talking about the vision that Surge has.
Yes, the vision that he has.
So in the vision that Surge has when he looks into the dragon tier, or what everyone's saying is the dragon's tier.
I mean, it's clearly something because it gets all magic-y looking.
Yeah, it's clearly something. We don't know what it is yet. He sees this island explode, like I said before, but he also sees a panther, a black panther, coming out and attacking him. Like it's hiding in the forest, and then it comes out and attacks him. And we don't know what, like, if it does it hurt him, does it kill him, does he fight it off? Like, doesn't it just stops right there? The panther jumps at him, and boom, end of vision. And obviously, Lynx is a Black Panther creature thing. And it's like, are these two the same? I mean, I know what's going on. I can.
What's even more interesting?
What do you think that means? I want to know what you think the Panther in his vision means.
Well, okay. So originally, when I played this game and that happened, I did not realize that it was an actual panther. I thought it was Link. And
you thought it was what?
I thought it was Link that he was seeing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And what happens later kind of confirmed that for me. But at the same time, now I think that what he was seeing is the event that changes history, basically. Surge.
So you're thinking that
Surge, when he was a kid, got attacked by a Black Panther. Black Panther killed him.
But wouldn't he? I mean, I would think, even if you were a young kid, you would remember that, right? Like being attacked. Like I ran into a snake when I was 4, 5 years old, and I remember it vividly.
Yeah, that's true.
I
don't know. But that's where my head went. That's like the point that happened.
Well, and again, I'm not saying that you're right or wrong. I'm just saying, you would think that if he was attacked by a panther, even at a young age, he would remember that, right?
Right. So, but that's where I'm at currently.
Okay, so you think that the event that happened was Surge got attacked by a Black Panther.
Right, when he was a kid, and it killed him in this dimension.
I can tell you that is exactly what I thought when I first played through the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, again, I'm not going to say whether you're right and hence my past self was right.
Right.
But
yeah, when I first played the game, I didn't connect anything like that to. I just immediately thought it was Lynx. It was him. Basically foreseeing the fact that Lynx is a bad guy. I mean, it's clear just from what we've played so far that Lynx is the main protagonist of or not the main protagonist, but the main adversary antagonist. There you go. The main antagonist of the game for Surge.
I mean, yeah, it's very. The game kind of, when they introduce him, makes a big deal about him. And it's very clear, like from the moment he shows up, that he's the one in charge. Like he very much takes command over General Viper.
Which is crazy because you have a dude named General Viper,
and you're in Viper Manor,
right?
And
I mean, it's clear that this is his manor.
Yeah,
talking to the people before you go in here. Everybody says it's his manor.
Riddle is his daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
There was actually a little scene with a character named Glenn and Riddle in Termina. that you may not have gotten?
Oh no, I got that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
where
right.
they're talking
Right.
about the fourth dragoon that died.
That died, right? And
Um,
it's because
and they refer to him as Riddle's brother. Or no, not Riddle's brother. It's Glenn's brother. Riddle's fiance.
Right.
And that actually starts a whole different storyline. That I was not able to finish it on my first playthrough. Like, I just couldn't beat it. Like, and I don't think it's possible to beat on your first playthrough. But yes, Riddle is General Viper's daughter, and that's why Kid grabbing her was such a huge. That's why he reacted the way he did.
Yeah, because it's her. Yeah, that makes sense.
And you got to think, like, Link's throwing the dagger at Kid/Riddle.
Yeah,
like, isn't gonna go over well. But like, again, Lynx is clearly the one in charge. Like, as soon like. The game acts like, oh yeah, General Viper's the big baddie, and then Lynx comes out and it's like, oh no. So like it's really good, like, storytelling, I feel like. Like they use the medium, like the visual medium, so well. Like, they black out the screen when he's talking just to Surge, and so it's just Lynx on this black screen, and so you have this guy that's dressed all in black on a black background, and he's calling you
the Chrono Trigger.
The Chrono Trigger, which was the title of the last game.
Right.
And it's like, it's clear that, like, he clearly knows what's up. He knows what's going on.
So my thought is, him calling Surge the Chrono Trigger means that Surge is the entity in this timeline that...
Well, okay, so this is a bit of a spoiler for Chrono Trigger. This is the first spoiler that we have to do for Chrono Trigger. Okay. The Chrono Trigger in Chrono Trigger was an actual thing. Again, I don't know why your screen keeps flashing.
I don't know.
It's really weird. It was also known as the Time Egg.
Oh.
Right? And so there's a choice that you have to make in Chrono Trigger. At one point, Chrono dies because of various events. And you have to decide whether to save him. And so you get, like, this doppelganger clone doll of Chrono.
To replace him.
You then use the Chrono Trigger, or the Time Egg, to go back to that instant where Chrono died and replace Chrono with the doll, thus saving Chrono, which is why it's known as the Chrono Trigger. Right? And so, so Link's calling you the Chrono Trigger is like, oh shit, that's like a huge, like if you played Chrono Trigger, it's like a huge, like, alarm set off in your head. Like, oh my god, that means, like, Surge is like this pinnacle moment. Or something. Like, Surge is this uber important thing in history for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but if you hadn't played Chrono Trigger, you're just thinking, the fuck's a Chrono Trigger?
Yeah. The first time I played, literally the first time I played this game, I don't even remember that cutscene whatsoever. So playing through it again, I was like, oh shit, he calls you the Chrono Trigger? He calls you the key to the death of humanity? What?
Does he actually say the key to the death of humanity? I don't remember.
He says Surge is the key to the death of humanity.
which is
I wrote that down.
Actually interesting, knowing what happens.
Ah, okay.
So,
yeah.
Anything else? Like any other story elements that you want to bring up?
I don't think so. I think we've hit
okay. Obviously, I know what's going on, and
Right.
I can just say what's going on, right?
Right,
So
but that's no fun.
That's no fun. So, and I want to get a little bit of audience / Discord participation here. So if you're in the Discord, you can type it out in the Discord. If you're not a member of the Discord, you can join and then type in the Discord. Or you can
link will be in the description.
Or you can just comment on this video, and I will definitely be reading through these. I want to know if you guys are playing along or watching along or however you're partaking of this. What do you think is happening? Like, what are your theories? Like, you said that you think the Panther is, like, Surge got attacked by a Panther 10 years ago. And in one world, he died, and in another world, or in Homeworld, he didn't die, and in another world, he did die. Right? So, Homeworld, he survived. Another world, he died. Who do you think Lynx is?
I have no idea. I mean, clearly, he's a demi-human of some type.
I will tell you, we will find out who Lynx is, sort of, by the next point that we play to, right? So so we'll get to talk about that.
So I should know this already because I got to that point.
You may not have pieced it together. And it may not have told you outright.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure based off dialogue, you can kind of figure it out.
Okay.
If I'm remembering everything correctly. I may be just remembering it wrong. I apparently remembered a lot of this. Like, I thought the disc change was at the next point that we were going to stop at. It is not. That is not the disc change.
Oh, it's further in then.
Yeah, it's way further in.
Oh, okay.
Like, you almost beat the game before you get to disc 2.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And I just completely misremembered that. But I want to know, like, what do you guys think is going on?
So the one thing I can't wait because I know that one of the things that the Prophet brings up is obviously that because like the whole thing with the Angelus Arare and that whole part that he mentions is clearly, this feels like a spoiler, so maybe I shouldn't say anything.
Maybe not. You're pretty bad about giving spoilers away.
So one of the things, okay, we'll say this, instead. One of the things that I think is going to happen is, I mean, like Chrono Trigger, we're going to have the ability to time travel.
Okay.
But unlike Chrono Trigger, everything, I think, is only going to take place in the home world or another world, because obviously they have significant name.
Okay.
So obviously, at some point, we're going to be able to go back to the home world.
Right.
I can't wait until I go back to the home world with another world Lena and walk up to the home world Lena and see what happens.
I mean, some of the characters you can do that with. There's one character specifically I'm thinking of that has a really great reaction to it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you're able to
I
recruit
can't
them,
wait.
and you recruit them in your party, and you take that person to the opposite world, and they meet themselves, and their reaction is just gold. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I will definitely
can't,
be getting that, so we'll definitely get to talk about that.
I can't wait for that type of. I will say one of the interesting things that actually just now I realized is you don't see Pushel in Another World. You only see Pushel in
No,
the homeworld.
Pushel in Another World has already gone on his adventure.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
interesting.
little sign or something in the village, and Pushel's like,
Oh,
I've
see.
already gone on started my adventure.
Oh, see. I
I'm
will
out
say that
adventuring or something
that's
like that.
the one mistake I made was I didn't go and talk to every villager when I transported to Another World.
Yeah, I will tell those people that are playing along. Remember, this is an old school RPG.
You
Yeah,
need to talk to everybody
it's important to talk to everyone that you
multiple
can.
times at some point. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes like there's one character, I don't remember who it was, but you talk to him several times, and then they're like, "Fine." Oh no, it was Karsh in his room when you meet him in Viper Manor.
Yeah, because that's how you get the
And you talk to him, and he's like, "That's 7 times." And then you talk to him again, and he's like, "Fine, just take the fucking treasure."
Yeah.
Because there's a chest, and he's like, "Only I can open it." You keep talking to him.
Really? Oh, son of a bitch! I didn't get that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, if you keep talking to him over and over, after like the 8th or 9th or 10th or whatever time, he's like, "Fine, just take it."
That's funny. Oh dang! I missed an item. That's unfortunate.
But again, if you guys are playing along, put your theories as to what's going on.
Yes.
What do you think is
absolutely.
going on? Who do you think Lynx is?
Absolutely.
Who the hell is Kid?
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that. Like,
Well, it hasn't really even come up. She kind of showed
yeah,
up out of nowhere and was just like,
yeah.
"Yeah,
I mean,
you're my buddy." I mean, except for you, who were like, "Fuck off."
I'm
like,
sorry.
you can't
That's
be
what the
mean to
thing
Kid.
to get Lena. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but anyway, anything else you want to bring up before we kind of wrap things up here?
No, yeah, I think we're pushing 240 at this point, so yeah, we should probably wrap it up.
Usually, we're hoping that they won't take this long.
They will not hopefully be as long as this one.
We're hoping like maybe an hour per game if we do 2 games or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean,
here,
I foresee the next game that we're gonna do that's gonna be a short game to probably not take as long.
So the next area that we need to get to, and I'm gonna do my best to not spoil anything. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of go by just like area names.
Okay.
So the next area we need to get to is we need to get to Fort Dragonia. Get through there and get to the next save point
After that
level.
Okay.
Okay.
So so we need to get to the point where the events that happen there that we kind of see in the very beginning of the game happen.
Maybe.
Well, and then there's the save after that. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's a save point after that. I'm sure it'll be like this one where you have to go through a little bit of exposition. Like they explained, oh, Kid's been poisoned. The only cure is the Hydra, and then we get to that save point in Goldov, and stop. This is going to be the same thing. We're going to get through Fort Dragonia. We're going to watch all the cutscenes. We're going to get to the next area. And then the next save point you get to, we're going to stop there.
Okay. Do you have a roundabout how many hours in that is?
It's probably going to be around 10 to 15 hours.
Okay. Because basically where we are currently is about 5 or 6 hours in, depending on how long we take to do some things.
We're probably going to do this in chunks of 10-ish hours.
At this point, yeah, probably.
So we'll keep we'll always keep the first episode of a game, if it's a long playthrough, to like maybe the 5-hour mark.
Mm-hmm.
That way we can, obviously it'll depend on each game. There are some games where it's like the tutorial lasts like 10 hours.
Yeah.
But we'll try to get a good clip in, enough to where we can talk about the gameplay. And then anytime there's a gameplay update. So the next time we talk about Chrono Cross, it's mostly going to be story. What's happening in the story? What are we getting frustrated with? What do we really enjoy about the game? That sort of thing. To kind of give you guys a preview. But that's the next stopping point for us. So, and do you want to go ahead and announce a short game to play?
Oh yeah, we definitely should, because it's going to be the whole So the next thing we're going to be playing is Halo Reach.
Yes.
It only takes about maybe 10 hours or so total to play through.
Yeah. If you play it with a friend, it can take even less. I highly recommend playing it with a friend, somebody that's going to enjoy the cutscenes with you.
Yeah.
So, and I think we might actually just start over from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Since we've kind of announced it, we will probably be playing that sometime during the week on stream.
Oh yeah. We'll probably stream it. That way, if people don't have the ability to play it or don't really want to play through it again, but want to like enjoy people,
and for
playing
some reason they like us, and they're like, "This bitch is funny or enjoyable." I'm like, okay, whatever. My students always seem to enjoy me on stream, so
yeah.
I don't know. I must be doing something right. Students kept coming to my classes, even though I recorded them and put them up on YouTube later.
But anyway, speaking of YouTube, do you want to let them? I mean, obviously, people watching, they can see our social stuff, but for people listening,
I'm kind of our general outro here. My name is Lady Farah on YouTube and Twitch. It's Lady Farah 14. We actually need to fix that in the.
Yep, I just realized that.
And you are just Mors Draconis everywhere, right?
Yes, I am Mors Draconis everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I chose a name that nobody ever uses, so I have access to it everywhere.
Again, our Twitter for this, what was it called again?
It is.
It was at.
It is at Backlog Cast Pod.
Because we're a cast pod instead of a podcast. We're a cast pod.
Well, you got to go with what's available. Unfortunately,
Backlog Cast was already taken, so we had to add something.
Yeah, we had to change it a little bit. So. But there is a link in the description for the video, as well as there will be social links in the description for all the podcasts.
Yes. If you are interested in the songs that we've been playing, those will also be linked in the descriptions below. If you would like to join the Discord to continue a discussion or bring up a point, Obviously, you can do that. The link will be up, and I don't think it'll ask for anything. I think it'll just let you join.
You'll just have to create an account in Discord if you haven't yet.
Yeah.
That's otherwise, that's it.
Okay. So no approval or anything needs to happen? Okay.
Nope.
But if you don't want to join the Discord and you want to participate, you can feel free to leave a comment in the video. We're going to try to annotate the video as best we can. We are new to this, so hopefully we will get better and learn as we go.
Yeah. And obviously, comments in the videos, always welcome. The
only thing we ask is keep it civil and polite.
Yeah.
If you use any kind of slurs,
and Twitter as well.
You use any kind of slurs, that is an insta ban.
Well, we can't ban them. We can delete.
Well, we can ban them from the Discord, delete the comments.
Right. Yes.
I think you can actually ban people from your comment section.
I don't. Anyway.
I watch a lot of DSP. I think you can do that now.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway. That's it. Thank you, everybody that came to watch.
Real quick, I do.
Yes.
I do repair streams and mods. So if you are into that, feel free to check out my channel. I think I have. What was I doing? I was making an arcade stick. I made a custom arcade stick.
Yeah, you modded your arcade stick.
And I believe it's all on there start to finish. So if you want to check that out. I'm going to be doing some other controller mods here shortly.
Actually, those are not on your YouTube channel. Those are on your Twitch channel.
Oh, Twitch channel. I need to move those over to YouTube before they get deleted off Twitch.
Yeah,
they will be on my YouTube channel shortly then.
Yeah, the things that are on your YouTube channel are us playing through Metroid Zero Mission.
Yes. And I also do some gameplay. So I am very much into the play on original hardware as intended type deal. But again, however you enjoy games is fine by me. What do you stream when you stream?
God, when I stream, it's usually whatever I feel like playing at the time. Last couple of streams that I did were, I think I did like an Apex Legend thing, and I did a couple other things here or there. I participate in a crazy Madden football league that you will probably see a bunch of videos on my channel for. That's what is mainly on my channel at the moment. I was playing through Final Fantasy VII there for a bit, but got a little bored of that. If I do stream, it's usually on Twitch at this moment, so that's probably if you wanted to watch me stream.
I definitely stream on YouTube now.
Yeah. So yeah, probably watch her on YouTube, and for me, it's if you want to see anything that's not football related. Actually, YouTube will be. I take that back. YouTube will be where I'll be streaming. I've switched that. So yeah. Okay. If I stream anything that's not football related, it's going to be on YouTube at this point.
All right. I believe that's it.
Yeah.
Any other things you want to
say? Just be careful out there. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And just do better in general world.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
My thing is just try to keep spoilers to a minimum.
Oh yes, and if you've played through all of the game, please don't spoil it in comments or anything like that. That's just really crappy. It's bad enough that when you go to search for things, it's in there. Yeah. Yeah. So. Thank you, everybody. And
we are always going to be doing this. We're going to try to do this weekly.
Definitely. That is the plan.
We're going to try to do it, and we'll see how it goes. But it's always going to be on a Saturday at 4 p.m.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. So be sure to check out the next one, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.